So good morning, and as promised, it's time for another fitness fragrance review. Should take my cap off really, but look at the state of my hair at the moment. Really need a haircut. But yes, today we are looking at CK Calvin Klein Obsession for Men. So yeah, this is an old school fragrance. This is one that I've owned many times. I've been desperate to do this one for a while because I think it's a great scent. So a bit of a spoiler. Of course, I think it's a great scent. Why would I have it otherwise? But yeah, what I'm going to do another fitness fragrance review. If you haven't seen these before, essentially what I do is I do a morning workout. I'll go for a run, walk to the gym, do a gym workout, walk back, all while reviewing this on 5 categories. So those categories are price and value for money, versatility, its projection, complement factor, and any experiences I've had, and then its longevity overall. We do a couple of tests in between. So does it survive a shower? How much does it fill a room as well? And yeah, I've really been desperate to review this one. You didn't see my video the other day. I looked on the internet for some of the weirdest articles around fragrances, and this one's definitely the one that I enjoy the most. Apparently it lures big cats, so it's been used in sort of zoos and enclosures, and I think it was used to catch a big cat because there's a note in it, or a pheromone called civitone, which comes from a civet, and it's like their glands. And yeah, so essentially that's why they use it. They think it might attract big cats. But yeah, who knows? Most importantly, though, do we like it as humans? So what I'm going to do today, as I said, I'm just going to rank it on those categories. Before that, though, I'll have a little look at the note breakdown. Retro fragrances have huge note breakdown, so I've got it on the screen next to me here, and yeah, we'll just go through what I can kind of detect. I find this, it's a little bit soapy. People don't really talk about this, but I think it's like a soapy cinnamon smell, and it's very sort of warm and inviting. But if we have a look at the notes, you've got citrus at the top, lavender, cinnamon and coriander. Cinnamon, I think, really is the prominent thing in this as well. It gives it this spiciness. It's very spicy, this fragrance. And then in the heart, you've got myrrh, nutmeg, carnation, jasmine and rose, pine and sage. Don't really get that green vibe to it. I think when you see the coloration of the juice being orange, maybe that's kind of influencing my mind. I can't really get that piney smell. And then the base notes: amber and vanilla, sandalwood, musk, patchouli and vetiver. So let's have a little look at the top notes. I do think the spiciness, you do get as I said, a soapy opening. I wonder if that's maybe the lavender that I'm getting, because it's quite aromatic as well, this. So yeah, definitely. And I think certainly the cinnamon and coriander is bringing that spiciness as well. That spice lasts the whole way through this fragrance. Don't really get the balsamic notes in the myrrh in the sort of heart of the fragrance. I think nutmeg, of course, again, is probably adding to that spice. Carnation, I've heard a lot about carnation. It used to be a lot of the old school fragrances. And it says here it's spicy floral, adds a peppery kick. Again, maybe so. I think it is quite a dated note, so I don't think you really see it in fragrances these days. I don't really get any rose or any sort of floral components really too much with this. And then amber and vanilla, there's definitely a sweetness to this. This doesn't feel like this really old school aggressive scent that, you know, is really harsh and in your face. It has obviously been reformulated over the years, but it's absolutely very pleasant. And I think that musk is probably also bringing that soapy vibe. So that's the kind of things I get. It says about things like vetiver. Sandalwood, I do think gives a bit of a sparkling sort of element to fragrances. I remember Sandalo I had, so maybe the sandalwood's in it as well. But yeah, for me overall, it's just like a soapy, spicy sort of fragrance as well. And I just think it's lovely. But yeah, I'm really interested to see how this scores today. So what I'm going to do, go for my run now before all the rush hour starts. We'll do the first 2 categories as normal. So we'll look at price and value for money for this fragrance and its versatility overall. So yeah, let's get on with it. What a lovely morning. There's barely a breeze either. This is kind of running into the wind. I can barely feel it. It's a price / value for money. Do I think Calvin Klein Obsession for Men is good value for money? We would have just seen the prices. You get 125ml, 200ml bottles for this. I think you might get 75 as well, but you mainly find it in those 2 sizes. And you kind of get them for around £18 for 125ml, and between 25 and 30 for 200ml. Now, I think this is the first time I've ever done this before I've even spoken about it, but I'm just going to say it's a 10 out of 10 for this. This hasn't really changed in price in about 11 years since I first had it. And obviously with the cost of living going up and all these other things, sometimes fragrances obviously get discontinued and some just fluctuate in price. This hasn't changed. This has always been available to get, and it's always been around that price range. And what I'd say with this is, again, we'll talk about the quality of the scent for this price. It's really complex. There's a real complexity to this. The first thing you'll see on Fragrantica when it talks about pros and cons, the main pro is how quality the scent smells for the price. There's a lot going on, as we said about the note breakdown, there's a lot going on, and I've already said to you, it just feels like it's spicy and soapy throughout, but there are a lot of notes, and if you read the comments on Fragrantica, on reviews, people are picking up those different nuances from the fragrance. So some people said they noticed them, some say they do get that piney smell, you know, others say they do get the floral component to it, some even say unisex, you know. So even though I'm saying I see it as mainly a cinnamon sort of fragrance, and that's what most people would say, there's so many notes in here and it's so well blended together. I'm not saying it smells really, really natural, like really high quality, but it does not smell cheap. It certainly smells a lot more expensive than, you know, £15 to £20 for 125ml. It's fantastic. There's a lot going on. It changes, you know, in terms of, as I said, at the opening it's quite more soapy and then it does become more sweet. And what I appreciate with this is I can't imagine, again, I wasn't around in the 80s when this fragrance was released, but I can't imagine there were many men's fragrances touching on vanilla at the time, and it just seems to have touched on loads of things. It's gone into the spicy route, it's gone into the fresh citrus route, it's gone into that sort of clean lavender musk sort of route, you know, and it just seems to have covered every sort of fragrance range. And if you get modern fragrances now, they're just all very similar to me. They're all very much caramel focused. They're not really doing anything too different from the norm. And this one did sort of break that barrier. So it put butt the trend, and I think that's why it's done so well. And well, I certainly enjoy it, and I can't fault that price. So 10 out of 10 for value for money. Right, on to versatility. Versatility. So can you dress this up, dress it down, you know, how suitable is it for different sexes, occasions, all those things, different seasons. So first of all, there is a women's fragrance to this, and I looked on Fragrantica, and actually the main sort of like fragrance for this in terms of scent profile is the women's fragrance. So be very interested, if anyone has had the women's version of this, let me know how similar it is. This actually gives me vibes of Guerlain Shalimar women's fragrance. I wonder if it's that Civetone, which is that note that we said from, you know, that attracts the big cats in zoos, so it makes it animalic. But this dips its toes in so many different sort of genres. It's a bit smoky, it's a bit herbal, it's a bit citrusy, a bit floral, a bit smoky, a bit sweet, all those things I was saying. It's you know, really versatile in that sense. It sort of covers all bases. So that's why I think it's best in terms of seasons for, you know, that sort of spring and fall. But you can certainly wear it in a summer's evening because it's obviously been reformulated over the years. It's not as animated, it's not as harsh and in your face as it used to be. I think this is going to be quite grown up for some people though. Now, I had it when I was at uni and I loved it, but I had only been exposed to old school fragrances because my dad was buying them, and obviously he knew Aramis and that. He didn't know these modern blue shower jelly fragrances, so he just wouldn't buy them for me. I think if someone younger now has been exposed to them at college and school age, you're not going to really want this. But yeah, certainly you could dress it up, job interviews, date night if you really wanted to, night out. And I think it'll do that job really well. It certainly smells a lot more expensive than, you know, than the price, and that it's not ideal for the gym or a workout, but I've worn it on a run before. We'll talk about compliment factor later, and I've had people mention it on the run. So, you know, it's never going to be terrible in any situation. But yeah, you don't really want heavy cinnamon fragrances when you're exercising. So it's certainly more formal than casual. It certainly leans more masculine, but that's exactly what it's for. You know, there's a women's version, but I've seen women on Fragrantica mention that they'd wear it, and I think that soapiness definitely means you can with the musk and lavender. So it's certainly not bad for versatility. and it's definitely got that signature scent worthy vibe. Right, it's a car coming now, so I'll just jump in. But in terms of score, I'm going to give this an 8.5. I think it's pretty good. I think it's very much worthwhile. And if there's someone who's a bit more daring and you're prepared to go a little bit out of your comfort zone in terms of away from aquatic safe fragrances, this is great. And I think it's a really, really good scent that can be used in a lot of situations. So yeah, 8.5, I think that's a fair score. Right, let's get this done, and then we'll do the projection test when we get home. The sun is out, but it's raining. Where's the rainbow? We're back. Now the sun's come out, of course, and I'm absolutely soaking wet, so brilliant. Anyway, time to do projection now. Do 10 sprays in my room. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to see how much this has filled up the room, but I'm going to go downstairs first. If you haven't seen this before, have a tea, have an apple, something else to eat, then I'll come back up and just see how much it's filled my room, essentially. So what I'll do when I'm downstairs, I'll talk about whether I noticed it at all during my run. I have one of my favourites, turmeric tea. I love turmeric tea. If anyone's not tried it before, definitely recommend. Anyway, projection during my run, did I notice it? A bit disappointed, actually. I thought I'd noticed it a bit more. I only noticed it on a couple of occasions when I stopped, and essentially mainly at the end. I've always said this, though, and I think the reason for that is because it's not that windy. When it's windy, you tend to notice these sort of smells a little bit more. So, yeah, I'm not particularly too surprised in that sense, I guess. But I think this might do quite well on the sort of room filler test. I don't think it's going to do too bad. As I said, it's a very complex sort of note breakdown. You've got those notes like cinnamon that are definitely going to project, vanilla. And yeah, I just think it's going to do pretty well on this. I know this fragrance obviously very well, having it, I think it's about 7th, 8th time. So yeah, we'll see. You know, it's been reformulated a lot over the time. So quickly finish this and then we'll go find out. About 12.5 miles this one. I had a hill, and honestly, as I've mentioned so many times, they just fill you up. They just make you feel so much more awake. I can already smell the fragrance. I haven't got to my room yet, but I can smell it before I've got there. That's a good sign. Do you know, I can definitely smell it, by the way. It was almost as strong by my door as it was coming in. I'd probably say about 55 to 60% as strong as it was 10 minutes ago. So yeah, not super strong. This is an eau de toilette, by the way, so you know it's not like this really strong fragrance it's meant to be, or it used to be, let's say. But yeah, that's very pleasant. That is going to fill a room. If you spray that on yourself, someone's going to notice that within the first hour. If you're in a sort of confined area, you know, a small room, definitely going to be noticed. If you're in like a big room, like a hall or a pub or, you know, anything sort of like that, I don't think you would notice it. But close confined space, people are going to know you've been there. Certainly if you've been sitting in that room for a while. That's very pleasant. Yeah, that's going to definitely get noticed. That's not bad. It's hard to give a score for this because I was a bit disappointed with the run. And yeah, I'm going to give it an 8. I think it's perfect for what you want, because old school fragrances can be quite strong and quite harsh. We've said this before, and almost quite offensive to a lot of people. This isn't. It can be if you're overspraying it, I reckon. But in terms of the strength I'm getting from this, from the projection, that's about right. And it's you know, sweet and soft enough, and it's comforting enough for someone to mention it in a good way. So yeah, that's going to fill up a room. I think if you've sat in a room for a while, this is where it's going to do best. Someone will come in and who hasn't been in that room for a while, they're the ones who are going to notice it, but not in a way it's going to choke them out. So yeah, 8 out of 10. That's nice. It's very, very pleasant. What I'm going to do now then, spray my arms, then we're going to head to the gym. I'll talk about compliment factor on the way. Let's hope it doesn't rain. Obviously, if I get any compliments at the gym, we'll bump it up to a 10. Be about 3 hours this will be on my arm before I sniff it and give a score for longevity. There we are. Compliment factor. So had a couple of experiences in compliments with this one, and it's funny because I said this isn't sort of an exercise fragrance. I don't think it is. The two compliments I'm going to mention that I've had have actually come from being in a sort of sport environment. The first one was a Sunday run I was doing with a few sort of friends, and basically one of the guys who was running with me was talking to another lady, and she said, that smells really nice. And he said, oh yeah, that's Harry's fragrance. And it was this fragrance. So it was noticed by a couple of people, again, not necessarily mentioned, but everyone knew it was me. And that was great, because again, you realise actually, oh, this is maybe stronger than you think. And the other one was when I was working as a sports coach. Again, I was working in a tent that was like 48 Celsius. It was super hot. So as you can imagine, fragrances didn't really last in there. However, one of my colleagues who, early 20s, so I say this is someone who, probably I wouldn't necessarily think would like this fragrance, said, well, you smell really nice. That's really nice, that. And again, I was in sports gear, I was in t-shirt, shorts. So I think, again, I go back to what I was saying, where it does cover a lot of sort of scent profiles, it's never too out of place anywhere, but I still don't think it's necessarily ideal for that situation. This is definitely one, again, I think if you're in an office and stuff, it's perfect. But would I recommend this for people to buy for compliments? Well, it's not the one you normally sort of say is for compliments, is it? You go for like a blue aquatic fragrance, like a Bleu de Chanel. But I think this is someone who's a little bit more brave, wants to be a little bit more daring, a little bit, out there, that just wants to break the mould. And this will get compliments. I don't think, as I said, it's ever really bad in any situation. So for that reason, yes, I think this is a compliment. I've had experience compliments with it. My brother's had it at work, compliments as well, and said I haven't. I wouldn't be surprised if I get more over this winter period. So for that reason, what do I give it as a score? I'm going to say, just based on my own experiences, so I can say that firsthand, if you had a bottle, I think you would get compliments. 8.5. I think that's a really decent score, very fair. I think its versatility is not bad, as I've mentioned, and for that reason, I think you will get people mention it. So yeah, 8.5 out of 10, not bad. As I said, 10 out of 10 if I get any at the gym. Okay, so workout done, no compliments, but I did just sit my mum. It's become this very orangey cinnamon smell. It's lovely. Very zesty. It's become a lot more zesty again. I think that probably is the cinnamon and the spices, but it does feel like it's become a little bit more citrus than soapy. So yeah, very interesting. It'd be interesting to see how it survives the shower now, sort of washing it off, and just seeing how long it lasts before I give my score on longevity. But I love that smell. I know it's not a gym fragrance, but who cares? If you like it, you like it. And so just leaving the gym now. It's been pretty much bang on 3 hours since I applied the fragrance. So okay, so I reckon I can smell it about 55, maybe even 65% as much as I did before. So let's say about 60%. And that's very pleasant. It's definitely changed on my skin chemistry. It's almost become like a much more aquatic, which you probably expect. And with the sweat and the shower and the heat from that, it almost smells like Fanta. It's like I've got Fanta. I've got Fanta on me. I'm sure that'd be different for different people. But yeah, that's absolutely fine in terms of longevity. So apologies, I had to cut the footage because someone was asking for directions today. It's something every day now, isn't it? I'm useless with directions. So what would I give this then as a score for longevity? Well, I think if you're doing exercise like I am, or you're working in a high heat environment during the day, you're probably going to want to reapply this still. Even though the longevity, as I've said, is pretty good, I still think you'd want to reapply. But if it's a cool day, which is again where it's more suitable, you're in an air-conditioned, climate-controlled sort of environment, I think this will be more than enough for most people, even despite all the sort of reformulations and stuff through the years. So, and the reason I think that is, by the way, is because there's just so many different types of notes. It's sweet, it's got the cinnamon notes that gives the spiciness, and I think when you've got all these sort of different genres, different profiles of scent, there's just some that really stick on your skin, and that cinnamon definitely has. So when we're considering everything all together, if I was wearing that, would I be happy just to spray that in the morning, go to work and come home 8 hours later? Yeah, I would. So for that reason, I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. As I said, I think it's one of those scents that some people might want a little bit more, particularly if you know what it used to be like. Again, I'm only going on what people have said before. This used to be a real beast mode. I don't think it's that sort of beast mode sort of longevity, but I don't think that's what many people want in today's world. So that's why I think it deserves a pretty decent score still. So yeah, what I'm going to do then, head back. Well, nearly back now, to be honest, have some lunch. And then what we'll do the sort of total scores and yeah, overall conclusions at the end. Back home, done 37,000 steps so far, so plenty again today, all while wearing this fragrance, the Calvin Klein's Obsession for Men. So what was the total score? What did it get overall today? Well, this is, I think, maybe the highest score I've had so far, 43 out of 50. That's massive. And personally, what I would say is if there was a Mount Rushmore of fragrances in terms of men's fragrances, this would be on it. I think this is a brilliant scent, which is reflected in the score today, I know. I think the fact this is so unique, I can't think of anything that really smells like it. Obviously now, it's nearly 40 years old though, and it's still around. It's still readily available, and you can get it for such a good price. There's so much complexity to it, which hopefully we've sort of covered today. And I just think it does so many jobs. I really like it. It's the 7th or 8th time I've owned this fragrance. And I think that speaks volumes. I've worn it at university, I've worn it now as an adult, and I haven't got bored of it yet at all. And I just hope that some people, maybe who sort of move towards those modern fragrances, maybe just give this one another try again, because it's so readily available. It's such a good price. And yeah, it's certainly been a bit of a story maker in terms of catching big cats and all sorts as well. But I think this is great for humans. I think this will get, I think, compliments amongst different ages as well. And yeah, I think the longevity of it, I think the fact it isn't maybe as strong as it used to be is actually probably a good thing. It's not as harsh, but there's so many notes going on. I think anyone who's just really getting into fragrances as well, if you try this, if you smell this one, it'll give you an appreciation of different fragrances and different notes. And yeah, I think this is just brilliant. I really do. It's nothing like what you expect today, but it was prepared to sort of break the mold, and it benefited from it. Obviously, some brands have released fragrances that probably haven't done so well with that. So very well done, Calvin Klein. I absolutely love it. This won't be the last time I get it as well. Yeah, lovely soapy cinnamon smell for me. And yeah, I can't wait to wear it this winter as well. But thank you very much for watching. Got a few different videos again, fragrance-related ones coming up this week, so I hope you'll enjoy those. Some might take a bit of planning. We'll probably end the week as well at some point as well, doing another sort of fitness fragrance review. But yeah, thanks for all the support again. I'll catch you later.